Hello and welcome to the Hold the Line podcast. I'm your host, Mike Alvarez, also known as Awesomologist. Today kicks off what I hope to be the first of many podcasts for HoldTheLine.com as we cover a variety of topics related to Mass Effect and the Hold the Line community. As we proceed through this podcast series, we will of course be covering Mass Effect 3, its ending, and the various topics surrounding it. But for our first episode, I thought it best to start at the very beginning. So tonight, we'll start with an overview of Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, two fantastic games by BioWare. What you won't be hearing tonight is a review of two games now several years old, but rather a look back at what made this game series one of the greatest of our generation. With me tonight are Krista.
Hi. I'm not sure what to say.
And Kaitlin.
Hi.
And Davis.
Hey.
How you guys doing tonight? Not like we haven't been talking for a good 45 minutes beforehand.
After that, I could say I've been better.
Oh, really? Oh, all right, guys. Well, welcome to the official recording of the first podcast. What I'd like to start off with tonight, first of all, before we get deep into the Mass Effect 1 talk, is start off with some Hold the Line community stuff coming up and stuff that's already going on. Kaitlin, I believe you've got some information for us.
Yeah, HTL's been busy. We just finished the Turn On, Turn Off BioWare initiative, which was, I believe, a great success. It had the hashtag TurnMEOff trending worldwide on the 29th, and that was really impressive. I was really happy to have been a part of that. We also have the M&M's campaign that just launched, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And we're currently working on Operation Letter Tsunami, which has already received a fair bit of coverage in both Forbes and the International Business Times, so that's one to keep an eye on as well. Other stuff that's been going on, Full Paragon, the charity started by some people within the retake movement for children's literacy, has recently set a goal of $25,000 that they want to attain for that charity. Krista and I managed to score tickets to PAX Prime, so if you want to get a chance to meet us and hang out, we'll be there. Look for us. And we've also launched issue 2 of the HTL newsletter, which has been very well received.
Awesome.
So, Operation Letter Tsunami is next weekend, right? The 11th and 12th?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
And for more information on all this stuff, you can always go to holdtheline.com and hop onto the forums. All the information is there, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
but
Read the
also
newsletter.
check out Operation Letter Tsunami. There's a Facebook event, so check that out. It's a really easy way to share the event with people that you know might be interested, and to also see the number of people we have participating. I think we had over 1,500 or so with the Turn On, Turn Off event on Facebook.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. Well, let's. Is there anything else community related want to go over?
There's a social media team.
Mm-hmm.
If people are interested in doing that, just joining up and helping spread the word about initiatives and things like that on a more official level. It's an open group, so anybody can join that. And then I'm not sure if they're still looking, but I know that the editorial team has been putting together the awesome newsletter. So if you're an awesome writer and you want to check that out and see if they need some more help, that's something that's kind of new.
All right, so let's go ahead and just jump right on into this. Let's go ahead and start off with Mass Effect 1, instead of starting off with Mass Effect 2, Krista. So, for Krista, if I'm not mistaken, you said you started off with Mass Effect 2 before you played Mass Effect 1, correct?
I did. I'm not good with first-person shooters, so I actually tried playing Mass Effect 1 a few times and didn't even make it to the Citadel. And I was just kind of going to give up, and everybody was like, no, this game is so good. You have to just skip it. Just play 2. So I actually played 2 first and then went
Gotcha.
Back and played through again.
Yeah. Well, now
Friends don't let friends
I'm a
skip really
cheater.
good RPG.
well, I guess first of all, then, obviously in your case, you played Mass Effect 2 first, and then wanted to go back and see the story. So that's what got you playing Mass Effect 1, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Davis, how about yourself?
I was on the Mass Effect hype train since like maybe a year and a half before it actually came out. My buddy had the trailers downloaded on his Xbox, and I went over to his house and he showed them, and they were showing the sniper rifle fold out from where it is, compact on his back, and like there was like a video of like the proto shepherd kneeling down on a hillside and the sniper rifle folding out and him shooting a geth, and we were totally sold from then on, and it's my favorite game, I think, of all time as far as video games go, and I've played games for a long time.
Nice. And Kaitlin, how about yourself?
I started playing Mass Effect when it first came out, and lots of things happened in my life, so I kind of put that aside for a while, and then decided to jump in again shortly before the release of Mass Effect 2. I was on leave from work, and I was bored out of my mind, so I just picked up Mass Effect 1 and started playing, and got addicted to the point that I was playing like 14, 15 hours straight, and I think I played about 3 times in a row. I don't know, for me it was the fact that became really highly recommended by my friends, and I was personally really intrigued by the combination of FemShep. For me, the ability to play a woman in a game is a huge thing. Plus, throw in romance and sci-fi, and what else can a girl ask for? Nice.
Yeah, I know for myself, I actually didn't start playing the series until I want to say it was Christmas of 2010, so into 2011. It was right after, I believe, it was Dragon Age came out. I played Dragon Age first, and then my friend recommended, well, if you like Dragon Age, you should totally play the other series, Mass Effect. So I know, like, when I jumped into it, it was well after the game had already come out and already kind of been lauded, and Mass Effect 2 was just getting ready to roll out. So I only ever had, like, one playthrough, and then it was, boom, right into Mass Effect 2. Which was just, I guess, a great way to just go from one into the other. But bringing things back to Mass Effect 1 here, one of the things I kind of wanted to start off with is, like I said, this isn't necessarily a review of this of the game or necessarily the series, but kind of just going over from things in the beginning. So Mass Effect 1 really kind of introduces us to the universe of Mass Effect, introduces us to our hero, Commander Shepard, and I kind of want to get the feeling from you guys, see what you guys, kind of like how your feelings were the first time playing through, and what kind of, like how it laid the foundation for you as a player in an RPG setting. And we can start with Davis.
All right. When I first started, like I said, I'd been anticipating the release for a good year and a half, right. And when I started playing and I saw, the level of detail in the conversations, I was blown away. I mean, all the RPGs I'd played beforehand were, like a Final Fantasy, Chrono Cross is one of my other really, really all-time favorites. And, I'd never seen something with so much love put into it, right? And then playing around, tooling around with the Mako, going to all these unexplored planets. I wanted more all the time. Whenever I was playing, I just wanted to be on to the next thing and see just what lay on the next undiscovered planet. And it got to the point where I was listening to the codex, like the voiced parts, and reading the secondary codex, and just like tooling around in the Mako trying to find all the mineral deposits. And it was one of the most immersive experiences I've ever had with a video game. And, I haven't found anything like that since. Is that what you're looking for?
No, absolutely. No, this is exactly, look, we're all players, right. None of us are game designers. We're not coming into this as, trying to figure out how we can make our best game, but rather, the experiences that we look for in a game. Just to keep this going here, now we kind of get our introduction to Commander Shepard in this, and at the very beginning of the game you kind of get to choose your background and so on. I'm curious, what backgrounds did you guys choose for your Commander Shepard, and class even? We'll go into that.
Earthborn war hero, soldier. Yeah.
Oh, you played a soldier the first time through.
I've been a soldier all the way through all three, and I know it's a noob class, but I really loved it.
Nice.
I did my Insanity playthrough in both Mass Effect 1 and 2 as a soldier, and having the adrenaline rush maxed out in Mass Effect 2 made it so easy. Oh my god.
Nice. Kaitlin, how about yourself?
I'm a colonist war hero, and I'm also a soldier through all 3 games. I don't believe it's a noob class at all. I actually think it's one of the harder classes to play because you don't have the biotic powers to rely on, and I didn't use Adrenaline Rush at all. I hate that power. So for me, it was a big
How do
thing.
you
And
do Insanity without Adrenaline Rush?
I guess I'm just that good.
Wow.
I got through Insanity on all 3 games as a soldier without Adrenaline Rush. I think the only time in any of my playthroughs I ever used Adrenaline Rush was against the Human Proto Reaper at the end of my Mass Effect 2 Insanity playthrough, because I was out of ammo on everything except my sniper rifle, which was too hard to aim into the eyeball with it moving around without Adrenaline Rush.
So you got Adrenaline Rush, you just chose to be a badass and play without using it?
I hate it. I really hate it.
Wow, that's some real skill there. I'm actually kind of glad I don't play on Xbox and play with you on multiplayer. I'd just get tooled around, wouldn't I?
Not really.
And Krista, how about yourself?
Always soldier, except for I was thinking on my last playthrough I should have gone biotic because I like to have a biotic on my team. And but I always have to have Garrus on my team, and I'm a sniper rifle person. So having 2 sniper rifles is really annoying. So I keep thinking I should have gone biotic, but I always play soldier. I've always played war hero, and I've played colonist and spacer.
Wow. This is actually kind of interesting. I honestly, I guess, the statistics show that most people do play soldiers. I have yet to actually play a single soldier for more than just a couple of missions. I started off playing an infiltrator from day one, and I've always been a spacer war hero. I think war hero is kind of, from what it sounds like, no one really did the whole ruthless or soul survivor, huh?
My brother was a soul survivor. My brother was a soul survivor.
My first couple of playthroughs were soul survivor, but that's when I didn't get very far, and I lost my save game actually. From Mass Effect 1 when I got to the Citadel. So that's why I was like, screw this. And I just went and played 2. And then when I played through again, and I think I chose War Hero. But the first time I did the Soul Survivor, it was so sad.
I've also played Infiltrator, and I did an Insanity run on Mass Effect 2 on a Sentinel as well with the tech armor, which is really awesome.
Yeah. Right. Well, we'll get into classes in Mass Effect 2 in just a little bit, because I definitely think we can definitely break those down. But getting back here to Mass Effect 1. Now, one of the things, of course, is that Shepard starts off and he's just basically this elite soldier. He's recognized for his eliteness, whether or not he's a soul survivor, or a war hero, or just known as a ruthless badass. But quickly the story starts turning into what seems to be a Geth invasion. We're kind of introduced to the Geth for the first time fairly early on, and of course also these husks, and it really starts setting the kind of the background, I guess, for the series, where we run into these artificial life forms that are essentially trying to, we think to be wiping out organisms, living creatures, and it's one of the things, of course, that comes up in Mass Effect 3 is that the entire series is I guess basically the struggle between synthetics and organic life. And now in Mass Effect 1, do you did it come across that to you was the big struggle?
It's one of them.
Yeah.
I think another big struggle in Mass Effect 1 was humanity's place in the galaxy.
Right.
I don't know if in Mass Effect 1 I could really choose one that was kind of the struggle to the story. It's just there's so much going on, and that's the thing with Mass Effect 1 is Shepard is just thrust in the middle of all of this and told to deal with it.
Right, exactly.
It's easy to paint Mass Effect 1 with the brush as like synthetic versus organic, but when you get down into like the details, like especially on Pharos, where you're going through trying to detach the Geth ship's claws from the tower so you can get rid of the jamming field. You'd see them worshiping like a light underneath one of the claws for the ship.
Yes,
and you get the sense that there's more to it than just synthetics versus organics, and that BioWare wanted it to be more than that. But a lot of the pre-release interviews and pre-release press, like IGN was painting it as, oh, these robots are bad, and that's what people were going into it thinking.
Right. Well, that's good old marketing for you, right?
Pre-release interviews.
But one of the great setups is like of the Geth, especially in Mass Effect 1, and we'll get into the Geth in Mass Effect 2 because they are greatly changed in Mass Effect 2, or at least our perception of them is greatly changed. But we were also introduced to these Husks, which initially through the game were believed to be some sort of alternate form of Geth, and then it turns out that these are actually the creations of the Reapers. Now, the Reapers are introduced in Mass Effect 1 by Sovereign, who we run into and have possibly one of the world's greatest conversations with the bad guy on Vermeer when we come across that big holographic thing in the room. And we come across this Reaper for the first time, and how is that to me? That moment when that first conversation with Sovereign was like mind blowing. I think ended up reloading so I could hear it again. And I'm curious how how that was for you guys when we first come across who the real bad guys are in the game.
Oh, same reaction. I was totally mind blown. I was completely in awe of Sovereign and somewhat terrified at the same time.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
From playing the weird playing backwards perspective, you play in Mass Effect 2. The Reapers are just like this big boogeyman monster type bad guys. So then when I went back and played 1, I was like, holy crap, I'm talking to a Reaper. We're like having a conversation, like Sovereign is an entity. And I actually thought it was a lot deeper and a lot more meaningful that way. I thought that was really awesome. And I think that it's kind of sad that there wasn't much. They sort of try to do that with Harbinger, I guess, to make him an actual character versus just like the boogeyman. But I think that Sovereign is where they really did it, and they did it really well.
They succeeded with Harbinger with that in the DLC, the last name.
Arrival
DLC.
Yes, you have a chat with Harbinger in the Arrival DLC, which I thought was pretty well done too.
Yeah. All conversations with the Reapers directly in the games are really well done. Even that Reaper Destroyer you fight on Rannoch at the end.
In Mass Effect 3, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the conversation in general. Now, one of the things, of course, in Mass Effect 2 is the Collector General is technically Harbinger already. So it's like we have a couple conversations with him, even though...
Quickly. Did anybody else feel bad for him when you saw him, like, after Harbinger releases control of him and, like, the Collector base is blowing up and he's, like, scrambling around in the cockpit trying to figure out what to do? I felt kind of bad.
I didn't feel bad for him, but I was wondering if he really knew what was going on. Like, did he maybe suddenly regain his own memories as a Prothean or something? Because he seemed really lost and confused for a second there. So I thought that perhaps Harbinger had been manipulating him on a level further than we realized.
See, I didn't feel bad for him because in Mass Effect 2, we do kind of learn that the Collectors, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but that the Collectors are essentially, Protheans that have been altered so much and for so long that they're no longer their own. They didn't seem to have like their own identity, right. And Harbinger's always assuming control of them and so on. And so like when he got released, I kind of just figured that's just self-preservation kicking in. That's just, flailing around trying to do something because you're going to die any second now. So no, I did not feel bad, mostly because I was also sick and tired of hearing assuming direct control. So, by the way,
back on topic.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, I was just going to go off on the tangent one more time. As an infiltrator, being able to headshot one of those Collectors right when it is like assuming direct, then boom, gone, was fantastic. All right. Anyway, so back to Mass Effect 1. So we're introduced to the Reapers, and we have our Geth. But now throughout the story, you mentioned this earlier with Pharos. We come across some some other great creatures. We come across Thorian and so on. Just to kind of structure Mass Effect 1 real quick. Mass Effect 1, when we played through it, it was a bit more of an open galaxy. You kind of had the opportunity to almost go anywhere you wanted without any real sense of, I mean, there was a sense of urgency in the story, but the way the game was structured was kind of like, yeah, you can go ahead and spend 5 hours exploring a planet on the Mako. And, you can spend what kind of felt like days on Pharos or Noveria and so on, trying to get stuff done. So I know pacing-wise, Mass Effect 1 kind of felt more like when you're playing a game, say, like Skyrim or something. Well, maybe not Skyrim, but, still kind of more that open world feel. And one of the, or rather several of the worlds you go visit to, like, for instance, Noveria, where we really kind of get our first taste of where one of our secondary characters, Liara, really starts, playing an important role, because we come across her mother, Matriarch Benezia, who is, also who's being indoctrinated along with Saren, who we believe to be essentially up until that point in the game, we believed him to be the main bad guy, and we come across Matriarch Benezia and so on, and how they're controlling these creatures called the Rachni. What are your feelings on how the Rachni played out in Mass Effect 1? We could start with Krista.
I'm probably gonna have people disagree with me, but I guess I didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of follow through. I mean, like, you really only see them on Noveria for the most part, and then you deal with the Rachni Queen, and then that's like kind of feels like that's it until they come back to it. I don't know.
Well, we do come across...
I'm not a huge Rachni fan. Like, I thought it was kind of cool, but...
And Davis, how about yourself?
If you hadn't read the Codex or, like, listened and walked around the Citadel and heard Rex talk about the statue of the Krogan sitting in the fountain, you really weren't, prepared for what sort of doom and gloom the Rachni returning to the galaxy would mean, supposedly. And I mean, I didn't get it until my second playthrough, when I had, spent my time with the Codex, spent some quality time with the Codex. And after that, I understood, what the gravity of the decision was and everything. And then, you do actually see them later on in Mass Effect 1 if you explore all the planets. There are some stray Rachni colonies that crop up if you save the Rachni Queen.
Right.
And so, well, actually, no, I guess they may be some of the brainwashed ones as well. In any case, it was a situation the second time through that I had to weigh really heavily, because Rex was in my party at the time, and so I didn't want to upset him, because I really love Rex, but I ended up saving her anyway, and it was something that actually I was really looking forward to after, in Mass Effect 2, when you meet that Asari on Ilos.
Yes.
Or not Ilos. Ilium.
Ilium. Yeah.
When you meet that Asari on Ilium who's controlled by the Rachni Queen, I was really, really excited to build my armada of Rachni, Geth, and Krogans to battle the Reapers at the very end, because I had saved, I was going to save all three of them. That didn't pan out so well.
Right. But one of the reasons I bring up the Rachni is because, as you were saying, if you go through the Codex, if you listen to Rex, the Rachni really bring in, or rather, because of the Rachni, we get the why the Krogans were, I guess, ascended or given technology by the Solarians. We start kind of learning about the politics of the Mass Effect universe and how these different races interact with each other. That the Turians themselves weren't able to, the Turians, the Asari, and the Solarians weren't able to hold off the Rachni, so they had to, ascend the Krogans and bring them in, which then led to another problem, the Genophage, because once the Krogan started, running amok around the galaxy, they didn't want to stop, and it's that whole story arc, or background story rather, is pretty amazing, because it plays out on Vermeer, when you got to be careful, because Ashley will kill off one of your squad mates, Rex, and that whole political racial struggle in Mass Effect 1 was, to me, like one of my favorite parts of the game, and I guess one of the things I want to get from you guys is where or how that played out for you, whether not so much how it played out, whether or not you let Rex live or die, but how that how that background story kind of played out for you guys. Start with Kaitlin.
When I came across the Arachnai on Novaria, it wasn't a big deal for me. I think a lot of the decisions in the game, I just had such a clear picture in my head of who my Commander Shepard was that I didn't have these huge moral crisis. Do I let the Arachnai Queen live or not? I knew who my Shepard was and knew what she would do from the beginning. And the same thing when you got onto Vermeil and you had to deal with Rex. There's just no way in hell I was letting Ashley shoot him. So I was really glad that I was able to talk him down. But I was glad to see how all of that played out sort of in the end.
Right. In Mass Effect 1 especially, they do kind of, you get a microcosm, I guess I should say, of what's going on in the galaxy in general, how people perceive the Krogan. Because now, if I'm not mistaken, in Mass Effect 1, there's a large community of Krogan that are following Saren and fighting alongside the Geth with Sovereign.
Right, because of the promise of a cured genophage.
Right, which you as Commander Shepard blow up. Which is part of the whole reason why Rex is at odds and trying to, well, number one, he's trying to convince you or coming to terms with whether or not he should help you stop it from happening.
My understanding of that was I don't think Saren really had a true cure for the genophage. I think that's how it was interpreted by the Solarian STG and by Rex, but it just didn't make sense to me in that way. There's something seemed off about the Krogan that you were fighting on Vermeer.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I got the impression that if he didn't necessarily have a complete cure of it, that he was probably really close to, helping. I guess getting the Krogan back to some sense of normalcy in their reproductive cycle.
Weren't there husks in some of the machines in the lab? In the lab where you fight the only Krogan doctor you ever see?
Yeah, because the main goal of the facility on Vermeer was to study indoctrination. Because
right, but is
was
it too far to think that maybe they were going to use Reprotect to cure the genophage?
That's what I was thinking. Or the impression I got in the game, that it was Reprotect that was curing the genophage.
I never thought of that, actually.
Huh.
Yeah, me neither. I'm such a paragon, you guys. When I got there, I was like, Rex, man, like, even if he is going to cure the genophage, it's not worth it. Like, this price. Like, we can do it a different way. Like, I was always on the side of the Krogans. I was kind of like, yeah, I can see where you're talking about how they're dangerous, but I was always just like, do you see what you guys did to them? Like in 2, when I befriended Morden, I had the hardest time talking with him because I liked him, but I always was like, what you guys did was wrong. The genophage was wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I was super paragon about it. Like, I was never like, yeah, Saren would cure you, so we should consider that. I'm not an Ashley fan. I would have shot Ashley in the face before I let her near Rex. So I was always just kind of like, well, we can't not blow this up, but you should be on my side, buddy.
Yeah, well, that's coming to it from having played Mass Effect 2 first. I know for myself, anyways, and like Davis was saying, when you go through the codex and so on, really, I mean, when you come across Rex is probably the only Krogan who, I mean, comes off as fairly reasonable. Most of the other ones you do come across are usually trying to kill you.
Well, even though they're not reasonable, though, it doesn't mean that what was done to them was right.
No. And right, exactly. But it's really only through Rex that we get this argument that that some of them actually want to change, some of them actually want to improve, and not just be mindless killers and mercenaries.
But that's the question that I'm proposing. Even if they didn't want to be civil, would you still be okay with the genophage? Like, okay, so let's say there are no civil Krogans. They are all murder machines. I'm still too paragon. I'm like, even if they are a destructive force that should be dealt with, like, I still don't agree with the genophage, even if it would mean that you have to fight all the Krogan. So, like, there's the moral question. If there were no reasonable Krogan, what side would you be on?
That's
Are they on my doorstep about to take my planet for their own?
I don't know. You have to make that call. I mean, based on the background of the game story.
right.
But then you have to take into account the fact that you, not you personally, but the Solarians uplifted the Krogan before they had a chance to develop properly as a culture to recover from nuclear war. Perhaps the nuclear damage to Tachanka would have been so bad that the Krogan would have died off, or perhaps that they would have evolved past that and then been ready to join the Galactic Society. So in the end, you're punishing the Krogan with the Genophage because you brought them into a society that they were not ready to join.
Right, and a lot of that really kind of plays out in Mass Effect 2 when we go actually to Tachanka, and we start getting more of that background. We actually see their blown out homeworld, and we see if Rex survived, what Rex is doing to change things. I've actually never played a game where Rex is not alive. Have you guys?
Yeah. So apparently if you don't play Mass Effect 1 and you don't load a save, for whatever reason, they assume that you shot Rex, so you don't have Rex.
I read an article. The base Commander Shepard that BioWare puts in through Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 is not like in any way like very good at his or her job. The default Commander Shepard makes a lot of mistakes along the way, and that's one of them. I don't know if you qualify it as a mistake per se, but that and a lot of people are speculating that the endings. I'm sorry, I have to go there. The endings of Mass Effect 3 feel right, given the default Shepard. Just because it's not, you're not totally Paragon, you're not totally Renegade. You've made some mistakes, and there's like this inbuilt anti-AI deal with the default Shepard.
Huh.
So.
Well, this will let me sidetrack then off some of the story stuff and just touch on gameplay a little bit with Mass Effect 1 and in Mass Effect 2 is the whole Paragon Renegade system. Because in Mass Effect 1 and 2, you really, in order to achieve things, and as video game players, I know myself, like, I like to, get the high score. I like to do the best I can at something. And that usually means playing towards one side or the other. And even for an RPG, it basically just means, well, I'm either playing lawful good or I'm, playing chaotic evil. Even though Renegade isn't evil and Paragon isn't necessarily good. But when you're playing through that system, I find it interesting that the default Shepard is kind of a mix, because if you play through the game as a mix, it means you simply do not get options and choices. Like, they just simply never open up for you.
They kind of fixed that in Mass Effect 3, but I agree
they do.
with the first two games. It was it was a little bit of a killjoy when you wanted to do like what all my Shepards are all full Paragons.
Uh-huh.
When you wanted to do something bad. And I had to suppress the reflex to hit the button to smack the quarry in general in Mass Effect 3.
Oh, I did it
because I was playing on the old Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2. Like that was my prejudice. But I mean, there's something to be said for being a jackass all the way around the galaxy. My brother does it all the time with his playthroughs. He's always evil first. I'm always good first. But the Paragon system, as a self-proclaimed min-maxer, I play a lot of World of Warcraft. Like you would always want to max out whatever the soldier talent was first, the one that gave you more Paragon points or whatever.
Right.
Because I knew that would affect how you could make choices in the end, and that's kind of a criticism that can be leveled against this system. But I still enjoyed it.
Well, right, exactly, but it's also because you kept trying to go for that high score point system.
Right.
Oh, I have such a pet peeve with the Paragon Renegade system, and I'm gonna have to touch base very briefly on all three games in order to point this out.
That's okay.
But I'm a total Paragon. I don't like kicking puppies, but Renegade in 1 and 2, you are
A
kind
jerk.
of a badass, and you're just kind of like, hey, you know, like I don't take any flack from anybody. Here's my issue. That's what Paragon or Renegade is supposed to be about. But in Mass Effect 3, to be a renegade, like you're not just kind of a rebel or, you know, you have a very strong opinion or you don't let yourself get kicked around. In Mass Effect 3, they have certain renegade options where you are a terrible person. Like you're not a renegade, you're a bad person and you can like harm your own squad mates. So I really think they failed in that perspective because I think it worked really well, Paragon Renegade in 1 and 2. And in 3, I absolutely have a problem where you are, in order to be full renegade, you have to be a terrible person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it does play out that way in 3. Although, I mean, there's a great series of YouTube videos about Commander Shepard is such a jerk. I believe that is how it goes, and it basically just takes like all like the renegade options you can take. Look it up on YouTube. It's a great
Most
little.
people don't think that renegade is jerk Shepard though. They think that it's just badass Shepard or mouthy
He
Shepard.
punches a reporter in all
That's
3.
awesome.
I felt that in Mass Effect 1, the story was very Paragon oriented.
Right.
I played both repeatedly. My Fem Shep, my main Shepherd, is a full Paragon, and then my Bro Shep is a full Renegade. And I felt that the flow of the storyline in Mass Effect 1 was a lot better if you played Paragon than if you played Renegade. There were some things that just didn't click the same way. In Mass Effect 2, with the introduction of the interrupts, I felt that it was a lot better. You had more of control over the game depending on how you played, and it seemed to be more important the way you played. I haven't played Mass Effect 3 as a Renegade yet. I haven't had time/heart to do it. But for me, I always saw Renegade Shepard as a jerk, as a mean person who just didn't care about anything or anyone else, and sort of not quite on the same level as the Elusive Man, but sort of pro-humanity and pro-whatever got the job done, didn't care about the results.
There's going to be so many angry Renegade Shepards about this podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
We're gonna get a lot of
Yeah, I got
emails.
4 Paragons here.
He just wants the end. He's justifying the means with the ends. I mean, he's just very utilitarian. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, that's not mean. It's utilitarian.
You shoot Morden!
All right, getting ahead of
That's
ourselves.
probably going to have to be edited out. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, if I can bring this back, then we'll lay off the whole Paragon Renegade discussion then for a little bit. Although going back to the story, or at least what's introduced in Mass Effect 1, and we'll kind of finish up talking about Mass Effect 1 here in a moment, because even though they're kind of a minor bad guy series, but we're introduced to Cerberus in Mass Effect 1. And it's interesting because, and we'll go ahead and just jump into Mass Effect 2 here, because in Mass Effect 1, Cerberus is a like offshoot Black Ops team of the Alliance, or at least that's the impression we're given of them. Who they basically do a bunch of experiments. They're the reason you kind of fight Rachni outside of Novaria as well, and yet they come into Mass Effect 2 as, well, number one, through the Elusive Man. And as basically the people that brought Shepard back to life. It's an interesting transition for this for these quote unquote bad guys. And now, Krista, I know you played Mass Effect 2 first. What was your impression seeing seeing Cerberus in Mass Effect 1, or did that give like any insight for you?
I have the worst memory, but I'm trying to remember where Cerberus fits into 1. I'm trying to remember where we actually saw them, because I feel like there wasn't a lot of Cerberus.
Well, they kill a rear admiral.
Yes, Admiral Krahoku.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come up there, and then that opens up a series of quests, and then some of the hidden missions that you can find when you land on various planets, where you find out about the Krahoku thing is about like 8 or 9 missions on various planets. I mean, sometimes it's just a couple of rooms you go into, dealing with stuff. But you'll also find little bits, like you'll go into a room and you're thinking you're just fighting some random Rachni, and then you'll find like a little data piece, and it tells you how it's like a Cerberus experiment. it's like they kind of quietly build up to Cerberus, or build up Cerberus rather, in the background of Mass Effect 1.
But it's a weird transition from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2, because in Mass Effect 1 they're just like an offshoot, alliance military that's gone rogue, and then in Mass Effect 2 like the Elusive Man shows up, and they've got all these bases that who knows where they got the resources to build them, and then I mean it gets taken another step further in Mass Effect 3. They become like a military on par with the Turians and the Solarians, because they're able to invade the Citadel. It just seems that it's a pet peeve of mine, that the Cerberus, but I won't bore you with the details.
Well, actually, no. This is the perfect time to go into it, because we are building up Mass Effect 2 here, because Cerberus plays a very important role in Mass Effect 2, and even more important in Mass Effect 3. I mean, in Mass Effect 2, Cerberus brings Shepard back to life, and then it's kind of like a red mark on his resume that he's worked for Cerberus or working with Cerberus. So I mean, any sort of pet peeve, I mean, go into it. It's totally fine.
But I mean, they you start out in Mass Effect 1. They start out as this benign entity that like okay, they're bad guys. They're in the background. They're doing some stuff. They've stolen a rear admiral. They kill him eventually. They're experimenting on Thorian creepers and Rachni, and you get to Kahoku, and that's the end of it. But then in Mass Effect 2, all of a sudden they're in the forefront, and like I can understand where the writers were going with it, because they were like, well, we need somebody to bring him back, and we don't really want the Alliance to do it, so let's pick Cerberus. They were there. But they turn into something. They were not nearly as in the foreground as the Geth or the Rachni or any of that other stuff that were in the main missions in Mass Effect 1, and I just felt like it was a little bit out of place. And I mean the game turned out great for all of that, but I had an issue with the kind of infrastructure and the intelligence and stuff that Cerberus managed to have. Just being like an offshoot Black Ops organization, they had a lot of troops for, a Black Ops organization. In the U.S., our Black Ops organization is a tiny percentage of the military. Right. So, I mean, that was all I had.
Oh, okay. See, this actually brings me then into the story structure going into Mass Effect 2, because the story structure greatly changes in Mass Effect 2. No longer, I mean, while we're still able to explore the galaxy somewhat freely, it's no longer exploring planets. Everything kind of takes place in a more like episodic setting. You land on a planet. Well, let me rephrase this. The way Mass Effect 2 plays out is less open galaxy exploration and more well, I guess more like a TV show. It's kind of like you're tuning in for tonight's hour, and on tonight's hour, you wander around the ship a little bit, you talk to people, or you talk to people on various planets, and then you go kick someone's butt for a half hour.
Whoever only played Mass Effect 2 for an hour.
Well,
if I sit down with Mass Effect 2, I got to play for at least 3 hours to be satisfied.
Well, true, but then it's like whoever sits down and watch Battlestar Galactica on DVD and only watches one episode. I guess I'm just thinking more along the lines of how the missions and so on themselves were structured.
I've done that, like on multiple playthroughs. Like not my first playthrough, but I'll sit down and I'll play one mission because it's about an hour.
Yeah.
Get a character, and then I'll go work on HTL.
Right.
Then I'll come back and play one mission. Whereas in Mass Effect 1, a mission is like, oh my god, Novaria was like 3 hours.
Is that where you've been the past week?
No, I've been sick.
Oh. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean to.
But but that's exactly it. Like with Mass Effect 2, especially on my like second, third, fourth play. I mean, I played Mass Effect 1 twice all the way through. I played Mass Effect 2 about 9 times, and especially the later times where it was just I'm just tuning in for today's episode. And it was just that. It was just like I played for an hour and a half. You spend some of the time just kind of going around talking to people because you got to go get this side quest, or you got to go, scan this planet for minerals or whatever. But for the most part, it was just, jump in, do a mission, and take some stuff out, and it was like watching a TV show.
I missed the openness of Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 and 3, particularly the Citadel. I was so floored the first time that you saw the Citadel in Mass Effect 1. I was like, wow, how amazing is that? I want to live there. And it was so great. You could run around the Citadel. You could literally walk or run to your next mission point on the Citadel, or if you didn't feel like it, you could take the Citadel Rapid Transit. So I really liked that, and I think that the Citadel felt really dwarfed in Mass Effect 2, and even more so in Mass Effect 3. So I missed that part, and I hated the Mako, but I missed the planet exploration as well. It just made the whole galaxy feel a lot smaller.
Right.
There wasn't a lot on those planets. I mean, I had a systematic path that I would take on the planets with the Mako to be able to get everything. So I know there's nothing on those planets. It's very boring. I would spend my time trying to see how far I could get the Mako to fly off of a peak, but
But it was still there.
Right, and that's the part that I miss. And I mean, they tried to fix it with the Hammerhead DLC at the end of Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
And I liked kind of how the Hammerhead handled, but and the levels were a lot more interesting, but I have yet to see that implemented in Mass Effect 3 because
there
Mass
are
Effect
no
3 is
vehicle
just as
sections.
linear as 2.
Yeah, there's nothing basically vehicle related in Mass Effect, a couple except for turret scenes, but we'll get into that discussion some other time.
This is the path that video games are taking now. I mean, if you saw some of the criticism leveled at Final Fantasy 13, it was like too much long hallway, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
so I mean,
that was the whole game.
Yeah.
I think that one of the other things too is throughout Mass Effect 2, and I'm gonna chalk a lot of that up to the soundtrack, which I think was just, I mean, the soundtrack of Mass Effect 1 is amazing, but the soundtrack of Mass Effect 2 and 3 was just a whole new level of epic. And I think that even though it felt a lot shorter, and even more so in 2 than 3, I remember the missions in 3, they felt shorter than 1, but 3 just felt like, okay, wait, I know it was an hour, but it felt like 5 minutes to me. And I think that the difference, despite all of that, is at the end of a lot of the missions in Mass Effect 2, I had a sense of achievement, I had a sense of pride, and I felt the time crunch in Mass Effect 2, particularly with certain missions. The mission where you go to pick up Mordin, where you have to get to the vents and fight off the Vorcha, or my all-time favorite mission in Mass Effect 2 is actually Tally's recruitment mission on Haestrom.
That's a great one.
I love that one. I played through that, so I actually have a save right before that mission, just because sometimes I'll feel like loading that mission and playing through that one again. The whole, do I go left, right, or center, and have to deal with the Colossus before it repairs itself. So I think that they brought a lot more into Mass Effect 2, even though they also took a lot out.
Well, that's kind of where I get to with the episodic feel of it, because Haestrom itself is an episode, even though it's just one mission. But it's the kind of thing where, if you were to say watch a TV show like Stargate or Star Trek, it kind of becomes, remember that episode, to remember that mission, to remember Haestrom. It's a specific episode feel, as opposed to, say, remember Noveria, and immediately your first thing is like, which part of that 4-hour mission of Noveria do you want to remember? So yeah, one of the beyond, or rather outside the episode structure in Mass Effect 2 is it is a smaller story altogether too. I mean, yes, you kind of don't get to travel around as much, or rather in that open world feel. And I understand what you were saying earlier about how the Citadel seemed to have shrunk. I actually think it shrunk more in Mass Effect 2, and they kind of opened it back up in Mass Effect 3, but you still don't get a chance to explore as much. But in Mass Effect 2, because it becomes a much more character-driven story in Mass Effect 2, I think, where it's so much more, it's less about saving the galaxy than kind of building up your squad to then go save the galaxy. Moving on, I guess, with Mass Effect 2, beyond the change in story structure, characters really begin to play a major role in this, and I guess I kind of just want to take a moment and just kind of go over like what's, like, you mentioned how Tally's recruitment was, as a mission, really important, but now how do you think the characters themselves, like what character moments really kind of like stood out for you in Mass Effect 2, since it's so much more about building up your team and your squad?
I'm going to touch on Mass Effect 1 just really briefly.
Absolutely.
I hated Ashley in Mass Effect 1, so I do not miss her at all in 2 or 3. I really didn't like Liara in Mass Effect 1 either. I thought she was a huge wuss and completely useless, and I swear if I ever have to hear Embrace Eternity again, I might just punch something.
Oh, boy.
But the same thing with Tali and Garrus was I felt that they were really distant, and I didn't have much of a connection with them. But then seeing them in 2 or 3...
here comes the Kaitlin stuff.
I actually wasn't going to touch on that yet, but it is coming.
Characters, except for Kaitlin, so she can leave him for last and talk about how she wants to sex him up.
I'm not even going to waste my time denying that.
You were saying Tali and Garrus in Mass Effect 2.
Tali and Garrus were so distant in Mass Effect 1 that I had no attachment to them going into Mass Effect 2. Except as you go through their missions and you get to see a much more personal and, for lack of a better word, human side to them, I grew attached to Tali and Garrus, and I actually did the final part of the Collector mission where you have to choose 2 of your squad and then leave everyone else to hold the door. For no other reason than they were the 2 that had been with me through Mass Effect 1, I took them with me against the human Proto-Reaper. And trust me, as a soldier on Insanity, that was really hard. They were useless. But I got really attached to them, and I got a lot more respect for Liara in 2, and even more so thanks to the Shadow Broker mission pack. Of course, Kaitlin. I love Kaitlin. I've loved him since Mass Effect 1. That's not going to change. Thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, I think that you saw so much character development and just got so attached to them. Now I've totally forgotten where I was going because we just sidetracked this with Kaitlin. Yay!
That's quite all right. Krista, how about yourself?
Let's see. Trying to think. You know what? Since we're talking about characters in Mass Effect 2, I have to say what most of us are generally thinking and talking about on Twitter.
Garrus sucks.
Why was Jacob a character? Is there anybody who likes Jacob? I felt like the characters in 2 were amazing. Like, I loved all of my squad mates, and I really feel like, kind of like Kate said, where, like with Garrus and Tali, I was like, oh, I really like them, but I don't really feel like they let you get to know people enough.
Right.
And even, like, the romance, like, if you romance Kaitlin or Ashley, I remember thinking, like, wow, this is really weird. Like, I've played this entire game with you. You're apparently in love with me, and I don't know, like, enough about you. Like, it was really weird. I felt like there was a disconnect. And in 2, I feel like they did such an awesome job getting rid of that. Like, everybody...
Yeah.
I remember seeing, like, I would see a squad mate and I'd be like, best friend! But, like, I would do that with, like, every squad mate from 1 that I met up with. So
except for Jacob.
Tali, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
Except for on Horizon, and you're just like, whatever, you're stupid.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. But yeah, I feel like most people I know that I talk to do the same thing that I do, which is, like, it doesn't matter how good your favorite character is or how useful they are, but that you take them with you everywhere.
Yes.
My team was actually really bizarre in 2 because I would always take Garrus, which is very obvious. But like I said, I played Soldier all the time, and I have to have a biotic. So in 1, I always took Kaitlin with me. And then in 2, I took Miranda, which is really weird because I am not a Miranda fan. But I think she's awesome with a gun, and she has biotics. So she was always my second squad member, which everybody thinks is really weird. And I love Tali, so I get a lot of people that are like, why didn't you take Tali? And I'm like, oh, because compared to Miranda, she's kind of useless. And then I get, like, jumped and murdered for saying that. I'm sorry,
I have
Tali
actually
Lancers.
never taken her.
Wow. All right.
Me neither. I haven't used
I
her
like
before.
her when you are up against synthetics. I can give her that.
Okay, I'll give you guys some tally pointers here in a moment, but well, no, and this is pure gameplay, but you touched on something about Jacob I do want to kind of just come back to Jacob real quick, because yes, he's kind of ragged on as being like the worst, character or whatever. Beyond outside that very first mission when you wake up and he's kind of like, he's your tutorial character. Where he's kind of like, this is how you shoot, and this is how you give your squad, or how you command your squad to use powers and so on. I will say this about Jacob. I liked his loyalty mission. The one where his father had kind of taken advantage of the wrecked ship situation for 10 years and so on. I thought that was just a great little side story. And Krista, you hated that mission?
Oh my god, I hated it. I was like a fourth of the way through that mission, and he's like, "Oh, my dad this and my dad that," and I was like, "Shut up! Nobody cares." Well, I thought he was so whiny.
Wait, see,
I was just like, "Okay, let's go find your dad so we can get off this planet, and you and I never have to interact again."
Well, see, what I was getting to is that I liked that mission outside of Jacob. It was more the situation on that planet and that you were resolving,
Mm-hmm.
It was, just the idea of rescuing those people from such a horrible man, and what he was doing to them.
Oh yeah, I thought that part was really interesting. If it would have been anybody else but Jacob.
I don't get the Jacob hate. Like I'm probably gonna get ragged on for
That's
this.
all right.
I don't like his character necessarily, but I just found him to be a benign presence that I wanted to build a reputation with, and have his loyalty mission. But I didn't feel the whining. I don't know when this became the Jacob Taylor podcast, but
that's all right. It's the most he's ever gonna get talked about. So
the poor guy. Everyone hates him for some reason, and I just don't see it.
Now I have to ask a question. Have you watched his romance video?
Oh
No.
god, oh god, oh god.
Because if you have not seen Jacob's romance video, like I had not seen this until like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I don't know how, I guess I just didn't care enough to watch it because I watch most of them. And when I saw it, I was like, what? Who wrote this? No offense, BioWare, love you guys, but did a 5-year-old write Jacob's romance scene?
It's stereotypical.
Nope. I would airlock him.
Oh, but the prize.
But the prize. So weird.
Yeah, but that's right up there alongside calibrations and one of those things that the community is going to make fun of constantly.
Right.
There's actually a fan fiction that I was reading where at one point some kid hacks Jacob's Omni tool and makes it go eye on the prize every time he uses it. So
I guess for me, Jacob is everybody else's Vega.
I didn't hate Vega.
I didn't hate Vega either.
A lot of people hate Vega.
Right.
And they can't tell you why. They're just like, he's annoying. He annoys me.
I know exactly why I hate Vega.
Why?
I do not hate him as a character. I think that he's kind of funny, and I can see him being friends with Shepard because he's just another Marine. I hate him because he is so useless and underdeveloped in Mass Effect 3. You have almost no conversations with him. He's useless for taking on missions. I see no point in having him in the game. I would have so much rather had one of the other squad mates from Mass Effect 2 come back into the game.
Which one?
Grunt.
One.
Right. But you say Grunt, and what if I say Legion?
Well, the only reason I say Grunt is because Vega is literally Grunt's replacement. Look at his power set and what he does.
Speaking of that, though,
Patrick Weeks said that they had weeks of weeks of conversation regarding, like, tense conversation regarding, like, if they should bring another character back, and they just couldn't figure out which one would make people the happiest, because, like, you say Grunt, I say Legion, somebody else says Thane, even though he's dying.
Right. No, it's completely understandable.
And there's some people that want some of that Samara, so...
I love Samara.
But I feel like the argument is if they created a new character, they should have fleshed him out a little better, because I get what they were trying to do, but I'm like Kate, I feel like he was there for a little bit of comedy relief, and his dialogue was kind of funny, but they didn't give you very much.
Yeah, after Mars, there's nothing.
Yeah. Well, there's that bit with Garrus.
Thing, I can understand how it would have been hard for them to choose who to bring in, but the grunt thing makes sense to me on another level. And this is something that I remember, I couldn't believe I actually thought this in Mass Effect 3, but when I saw that I had my whole squad, I'm going, where's the Krogan? You had a Krogan in your squad in 1 and 2, and it just felt like there was some serious Krogan missing in Mass Effect 3.
I did miss having a Krogan as well.
I missed having a Krogan, but that's exactly to me who Vega was. Vega was he's your human Krogan, if you will. You know, he was just a big meathead. But anyways,
we're way into Mass Effect 3
we
now.
are. We're like it's like I've been trying to rack my brain for like the last like minute and a half trying to figure out how do I bring this back to Mass Effect 2.
Why don't you just tell us to stop?
We could just talk about how awesome Garrus is.
Let's not.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Let's not.
Whatever. You guys may not romance him, but he's still your bro.
He's totally a bro. But
Best love interest we could all talk about.
Right. Listen, I do want to bring it back real quick to Mass Effect 1.
It's me. No? Oh, okay.
Back to Mass Effect, and you know what? Just I'll see if I can fit that in and make sure we go ahead and link to your to your thread. Just
The lovingest love interest of all.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is your tattoo picture up in there?
It's not.
You should put it up. That was
should
pretty
put it
hot,
up.
dude.
But to bring this back to Mass Effect 1
Are
and
you
2.
patronizing me?
Like I was saying, to bring this back to Mass Effect 1 and 2, I'll give you guys.
Oh, we're way out. No,
I know. I'm really trying hard to reel this back in. A few tally pointers for Mass Effect 1 and 2. Number 1, in Mass Effect 1, if you're on the Mako, always have tally with you, because
Shields.
Yes.
Oh my god, I did not play Mass Effect 1 with Tally, and I missed out on like half the game.
Oh, Mass Effect 1, with having Tally around for Mass Effect 1, especially when you're on the Mako, helps you, it builds up your shields like by like over 50% on the Mako itself. And then of course
You can't hack anything without her.
Right, exactly. It's like you can't open any of the, security things and whatnot. And
I could fight without her fine. I mean, you just use Garrus as your hacker instead.
I clearly didn't have enough points in the Garrus chain for that because I couldn't open anything.
That was just it. Like I always built up Garrus's other abilities that were much more useful.
I didn't want to bring Tally with me because I don't really like her. Oh God.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm gonna get lynched.
I'm not offended. I'm a huge Tally fan.
I'm
like,
offended.
I'm a huge. Seriously,
I don't care if you're offended.
In Mass Effect 1, I used to I remember going to talk to you do the loop where it's like you finish a mission and then all right, let me go talk to Garrus, and then I go talk to Ashley, and then I go talk to Rex, and then you go talk to
Bay?
Yeah, exactly.
Tally,
You do the cargo bay loop. And I remember I would always talk to Rex or Garrus first. Because they always seem to kind of have like Rex always had like a cool story to tell, and yeah, exactly. And then there's like there was the whole Shepard Rex bit. That's exactly, it was great. And Garrus, kind of although Garrus a little bit of a wet blanket in the first game, but he still had some interesting stories and some interesting insights into like CSEC and kind of how things work in the galaxy. But I would go talk to Ashley, and it was just like, oh God, your sisters again. Oh God, you got a letter. Oh, you got another letter. That's great. Oh, okay, you got daddy issues too. That's amazing. And I would just listen to her, and I'm like, listen, I really just want to go talk to the Quarian and find out more about her people and this incredible mission she's on because she's come of age. Like that, I kind of like I fell in love with Tally then, and then in Mass Effect 2, of course, Tally's fantastic. But now Mass Effect 2, using her, now this isn't purely in-game stuff. Her combat drone is awesome because enemies will focus on that, and if you play a sniper, all right, and you've got a bunch of enemies that are all hidden behind cover, you drop that drone and they all pop out of cover like groundhogs, just kind of popping their heads up, kind of like, oh, I got to shoot this now, and you can just pick them right off. The combat drone is fantastic.
That's what Singularity's for.
Pardon?
In 3, there's another character who has that power that I think has worked out way better, but I won't say who it is because of spoilers.
Right. We'll save that. Yes, but it's the same effect though in Mass Effect 3. But that's in Mass Effect 2, her, and then later on Legion. Now, getting back to the story where I was talking about earlier with their introduction of the Geth in Mass Effect 1, brings us to the Geth in Mass Effect 2 because we get a completely new perspective on them in Legion. And
I love Legion.
Yes.
I know, Legion's so amazing.
Oh, he's absolutely one of the best characters.
And now he's dead. Oh, spoilers!
Oh God.
I just love the way he calls each
Just live.
It's all right. I think at this point, anyone listening to this has already played through all 3 games.
You don't have the patience to listen to us ramble on.
I'm hoping I can cut at least 15 minutes of this so far. So I'll leave that in though, so people know 15 minutes were cut out. But Legion in Mass Effect 2 gives a whole new perspective on the Geth, letting us know that that not all the Geth were on board with Sovereign to begin with. And part of the reason I'm bringing him back up is I'm trying to get to the root of one of the explanations for the ending of Mass Effect 3, without getting into too many spoilers. Part of the explanation is that the struggle between synthetics and organics was the primary point, and they really contradict themselves with Legion in Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how you guys feel about this.
That blew my mind. The whole, trying not to spoil it, the whole sitting there and getting told that the whole thing was about synthetics and organics. And I
had forgotten that was a conflict, actually.
I know. I'm like, did I not just deal with this? I'm so confused right now. And at the beginning of Mass Effect 1, you really didn't know anything about the Geth, and then started to sort of get to know about them and how they had the collective consciousness and whatnot. And I guess I sort of saw them as a cross between the Borg and the Cylons, where like the Borg have like a hive mind, and then the Cylons are like, they have all the different models that have different abilities, and some are smarter than others and whatnot.
Don't they vote on stuff too? I haven't really watched PSG.
The Cylons?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, to a point. So, yeah, again, you have, like, the hive mind, but the consensus, and then certain models are stronger. Like, you have, obviously, a Geth Prime would be able to beat a Geth Trooper any day. So you sort of had all of that, and you got to see a little bit about the Geth throughout Mass Effect 1, but you still kind of just saw them, I don't know, at least me personally, through Mass Effect 1, I just saw them as these synthetics who wanted to fight organics just because they're synthetics and that's what synthetics do. And then getting into Mass Effect 2, I was a little surprised, again, sidetracking a bit with the whole Cerberus being brought in all of a sudden. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to the Geth? But then slowly that gets to be brought back in. And when you run into Legion, I was just like, wow, this guy's cool. I mean, I don't know, a lot of that's probably because I really like the way he calls you Shepard Commander. I don't know, it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
And getting to talk to Legion and see that the Geth were evolving and what they were evolving to, it really made me question my assumptions about them so far. And I think that that was one of the hardest decisions for me, because like I said earlier, I have such a clear picture of who my Shepard is and what she stands for, that things like the Genophage or the Rachni on Noveria, those were not hard decisions for me. I knew what I wanted to do long before Mass Effect 3 came out, given the option. But when it came down to Legion and the Geth in Mass Effect 2 and whether or not I should rewrite the Geth or destroy them, I honestly had no idea. I sat there for probably about 15 or 20 minutes trying to figure out what I should do. I was so afraid that it would turn around and it would bite me, or like that I was going to make a horrible decision and wipe out these people, because to me the Geth are people, especially in the end of Mass Effect 3, and I didn't want to make a decision like that. I was so confused, I didn't know what to do.
That's definitely one of the toughest decisions to make in Mass Effect 2, even though I don't think they meant it to be one of the toughest decisions. But it actually, I like you, I completely understand. It definitely felt that was one of the hardest decisions I think I came across in Mass Effect 2.
Just because it was so unclear still who the Geth were and where they were going, and it was like, basically you see this plant growing in your garden, you don't know if it's a weed or a beautiful flower, and you can't decide whether you should pluck it or let it grow.
Looking at that decision and how it made you feel, I'm getting the sense that that's what they were aiming for with the endings. to Mass Effect 3. That's what they were trying to shoot for, something where you would vacillate for a long time, but instead they just, okay, I'm sorry. Oh.
No, it's okay. You know, that's actually, it's a valid point, and I think that's certainly a thing to bring up.
Okay, we can talk about the Geth though.
Right.
As soon as you meet Legion, as soon as I met Legion, I stopped thinking of it as, and I actually hadn't categorized the Geth as synthetics in my mind, like, where you file things away, because of the huge differences in, how you see the other AIs. So there's like the one that you find on the moon, right? Who's, barely sentient. There's the one you find on the Citadel, who's been hiding, and he turns out to be a murderous asshole. And then, the Geth themselves, I started thinking of them as a distinct race rather than as something totally different and alien. And when I settled the Quarian Geth dispute, and now that I'm thinking back about it, I wasn't even thinking about the synthetic versus organic, idea, partly because Legion had endeared me so well to the Geth.
Right.
But partly because I was just looking at it as another racial conflict, like the Turians and the Krogans, like something that just needed to be resolved. And so when it finally came time, and I was told that synthetics are always going to destroy organics, it was something that had been put to bed for me basically with the end of Mass Effect 1. And I was that much more surprised.
I was like that. Like I said, my perception of the Geth started to change from the time that I met Legion, and then going through Legion's loyalty mission was really hard for me. And then come Mass Effect 3, when you finally run into Legion again, my heart broke for him. And I felt so bad for Legion at that point. And when it came finally to Rannoch and having to decide between the Geth or the Quarians, it was not a question for me anymore. Initially, had you asked me from Mass Effect 1 and maybe a little bit towards the end of Mass Effect 2, I would have told you hands down, if I was forced to choose, it would have been the Quarians without a doubt for me, because I saw the Geth as machines. But Legion single-handedly changed that perspective for me. And when I got to Rannoch and I had to make that decision, thank God I had enough Paragon points, because I would not have been able to make it otherwise. I couldn't do it. I could not choose between the Geth or the Quarians. They were both completely distinct races with amazing futures ahead of them and amazing things to offer the galaxy.
And just a real quick touch on this, because you mentioned thank God you had enough Paragon points. I think you can get that same kind of ending with Renegade as well.
Yes, but if you do not have sufficient Renegade or Paragon points, then you are obliged to choose between the Geth or Quarians.
But we're getting our head a bit ahead of ourselves here with Mass Effect 3. Coming back to it's just that so much that Legion brings to and really changes our perception of the Geth. I really think it's pretty phenomenal. Like I say, he's such a great character and adds so much to the story. Just want to touch again, actually, back to the Genophage, kind of bringing things back here, because that also introduces us to Mordin and what he does with the Genophage. And we talked a little bit about it earlier. Some of you mentioned about how difficult it was to deal with him. I think that was Krista, right?
Yeah, I was pretty sure after talking with Morden for about 5 minutes that he was just going to up and leave the Normandy, because I would offend him so terribly. I was like, logically, yes. Logically, scientifically, I understand everything that you're saying, but I'm so puppies and rainbows and kittens that I cannot agree with you that you made the right choice. Oh, God, please don't leave my ship. I was convinced that I was going to, I had to keep asking people that had played the game, okay, can I actually get him loyal if I keep pissing him off about the Genophage? Because I was convinced that I was like, please like me, but I don't agree with you.
Now, you can change his opinion on some stuff in Mass Effect 2, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
To a point. To
a point, right. But I mean, you can really either reassure that you can go the Renegade path, which is to reassure him and what he did was right, or you can go the Paragon path, which is to introduce enough doubt, really, I guess is really what it is. It's not so much that you're changing his opinion, it's just that you're introducing more doubt.
I wouldn't say you're introducing more doubt so much as you are encouraging him to challenge his perceptions and challenge his status quo with the new information that's available. Because the way I always saw it was Morden made the decision to modify the genophage to carry on that work, all within the Solarian STG. So he would not have had an idea beforehand, really, of what it had done to the Krogan. And I think that when you do his mission on Tuchanka, and he sees Malin, and he sees how tortured Malin is over it, and he sees what has been done to the Krogan and how desperate they are, I think that that's the first time that Morden really began to question himself and go, was I right? Should I have looked into this more beforehand? And I think Paragon Shepard's role is to encourage Morden to continue that introspection and to make up his mind for himself with all of the information available outside of the framework of the STG.
Right.
Or in Krista's case, to make his mind up so that she agrees with him finally.
I was like Krista. I challenged Morden constantly, and I was pretty sure he was going to tell me to go to hell. But no, like I got in a lot of fights with Morden in Mass Effect 2.
I love that he stays logical, though, and true to his own character. Because even if you... I mean, there were conversations that I would have with Morden where we would literally, like, I don't know if it was Morden or Shepard, but one would literally just have to be like, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree and stop talking about it because we're not getting anywhere. But I really like that it's not totally KOTOR. Like, you can't just change him and make him good or bad, or make him pro-genophage or anti-genophage. But you can do that lovely BioWare thing, which is like influencing your companions without changing their actual character structure, which is awesome.
Right, and same thing, of course, kind of coming back also to Tali and Legion. It's the same kind of thing. It's not so much that you convince Tali that you know the Geth are all great. It's not so much that you convince Legion that you know the Quarians aren't all just going to go ahead and try to wipe them out, but just enough that you're getting them to cooperate.
Garrus is a good example of that too.
Pardon?
You convince the Geth and Quarians to give each other a chance.
Right.
I think Garrus is a really good example of that same sort of dynamic, because you can pretty much be like, yeah, go all renegade, shoot people, take everyone down, don't take names. Or you can like keep Paragon encouraging him basically with things like loyalty missions where you're like, no, you're better than this, or like, yeah, do it, that's what I would do. Like the Sidonis thing.
Yeah.
Which was, oh my god, that was the hardest mission that I had as a Paragon in any of the games, because I'm incredibly Irish, so I was like that guy killed your friends, you take him out. But I was like, I'm a Paragon. And I also, because Garrus was my love interest, I was like, first of all, that's what I would do. I'd shoot that guy in the face. But then I was Paragon, so I couldn't really. It was like the one decision I waffled over every time I played. But then I was also like, oh, I love you, Garrus. You can do anything that you want. But I always talked him down, and I felt really bad about it. I was like, if he had talked me out of shooting Sidonis, I'd be pissed.
Right.
I hate that guy.
I like this view into Krista's psyche.
You really don't want to get on her bad side.
Never cross her.
Yeah.
Never cross her.
It's good to know for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I love you very much, Garrus. You can do whatever you want.
But it shows a little bit. I don't know if anyone else ever noticed this, because I think it's only something you can come across if you romance Kaitlin in Mass Effect 1, is Krista brought up a little bit of a point earlier comparing KOTOR and BioWare and the influence that you have over your companions and how different it is in the two games. Whereas in KOTOR, you can completely make them go dark side or light side if you influence them enough and you do it properly. Or in BioWare, BioWare, Mass Effect 1 and 2, the influence is a lot more subtle. Mm-hmm. But more so in 2 than in 1. If you play a Renegade FemShep, I haven't done this myself, but I've seen the videos on YouTube. If you play a Renegade FemShep and you're romancing Kaitlin, you can turn Kaitlin pretty darn renegade. Like, he gets a little bit xenophobic, and it's kind of scary.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So there was that. And I think with the Garrus thing, and when you compare it to the Quarians or the Geth, not to downplay what Garrus went through, because it was horrible and I felt for him. He's my buddy. But it wasn't as much of a big deal for me as it was with the Geth and the Quarians, because that was just Garrus dealing with his personal problems. Whereas Tally, for example, had been conditioned for hundreds of years by her people's culture to be, for lack of a better word, racist against the Geth, because you really see it in 3, where you see that the Quarians and the Geth have two completely different ideas of how that war went and two completely different stories of it. And you have to work hard to encourage Tally to look past that stereotype that she's developed, to see Legion for the individual that he is, and the Geth for the individuals that they could be given time to grow. Whereas Garrus, it's really just helping Garrus find himself or not lose himself, depending on how you see it.
Yeah, I can see where Garrus is a bit more of a personal story, because it even ties into Dr. Salian in Mass Effect 1. Mm-hmm. You know, whether or not he goes after, you know, it's a bit of a vendetta. You know, it's the guy that got away. So his story is definitely much more personal. I think it's great too, because Garrus is never, you know, this vindictive. He never has too many issues with, say, Rex. You know, I mean, they have a couple of little one-line jabs at each other and so on, but it's never
Grunt,
a Turian.
where you have to tell Grunt he can't eat Garrus.
Right. But see, once again, that's more of an issue with Grunt than it is with Garrus. You know what I'm saying? Like, Garrus is it's interesting because he's kind of above the political stuff that takes place, or the interspecies stuff that takes place. But
I mean, you had two really special Krogans your main dealings with Grunt and Rex were, I mean, they're both exceptional members of the species, and
yes.
and you know, different thinking than all the other ones. I don't know that, I mean, if you had if you had Reeve on board,
right,
there might have been a little bit more.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there would have been a problem for sure. But again, I don't think it would have been Garrus that would have triggered it. Garrus, to me, he's very different from the other Turians. He's above the petty interspecies arguing, more so in 2 than in 1. In 1, you kind of saw a little bit. I think he even says at some point something about Shepard and how humans and whatnot. I can't remember the line.
He is a little wary in Mass Effect 1 of, you know, flying around with Shepard, and he does mention he's also a little wary of Rex, if I'm not mistaken, as well. But he never lets it get in the way of his job. Mm-hmm. You know, he's always a professional about it. So, and what's not to like about Garrus? You know, I mean, come on.
That's because he's awesome.
He is. He's the ultimate bro.
I really love him.
Well, listen, we're at the hour and 25-minute point here. So I'd
we
like
haven't covered everything in the
outline. I gave up my outline somewhere around point number 3. So because the conversation kind of just went where it went. Now I'll edit some of this down, but I would like to start kind of wrapping this up. I know we didn't get to cover some stuff and just, you know, some of the gameplay stuff in Mass Effect 2 and changes. I don't really think we have to, but I kind of just want to maybe get from you guys just kind of your lasting impressions, I guess, from Mass Effect 1 and 2, and how it feeds into Mass Effect 3 without getting into a Mass Effect 3 discussion, if we can. I know that's really hard.
We're really good at derailing things.
We are, and it's okay. I'm gonna leave some of the Mass Effect 3 talk that's in this anyways. But if I can just kind of, like, you know, what if I can, and we'll start with Davis here. What are your lasting impressions from Mass Effect 1 and 2 that are just, like, you know, the really good things you're taking with you from Mass Effect 1 and 2?
Right. So from Mass Effect 1, it was probably the open world and the sense of what could be out there. Like when you first start, and like even when you start a new game now, if I were to go back, and just like the sense of like this huge open galaxy that I could be exploring and all the things I could find. And then I also take away from Mass Effect 1 the tingly feeling I get when I let the Arcturus fleet in through the Citadel relay to save the Council.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes. And then, you know, and you know, kind of wrapping it all up, at the very end when the piece of the Reaper crashes in through the Citadel tower, and
yes.
and like you think Shepard's dead and he walks away from it, like that influenced my view of what Shepard was as a hero. Like he was the guy who could challenge all odds and maybe come out with a few scrapes, but he would be okay at the end. As long as he tried hard enough.
Right. He's a survivor. We'll get into that later.
From Mass Effect 2, it was more of Shepard he's willing to take on all comers, even if people are telling him that it's too much, you're not going to be able to do it, he still does it anyway because he has to. And I think that's what I like the most about the character, even though the character fluctuates between who you're talking to. And then for Mass Effect 2 as well, I mean, just like that scene more about the ending scenes, but that scene at the end of Mass Effect 2 where you come through the Omega Relay and you see the culmination of all the minerals and all the hard work and all that mindless mining that you did in, like, the way that that cutscene is affected with, the I-beams deflecting off the hull and nobody dying in transit, and being able to shoot the collector ship and take it down in two hits with the Thanix cannon. That was the penultimate moment of the series for me.
Absolutely. Actually, you know what? And if I can just touch, we'll come back to the other impressions for Krista and Kristen here, but actually Kaitlin. But the brilliance of the suicide mission. Right. That is just such a I mean, that's because it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get through the suicide mission, give or take.
Yeah.
But just the brilliance of how everything you did earlier in the game really mattered.
That flowchart, have you seen the flowchart?
Yes.
Yes. And the one that people made for Mass Effect 3 of what it could have been.
Uh-huh.
I was totally expecting the ending to Mass Effect 3 to be a lot like the ending to Mass Effect 2. That was what I wanted from an ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and it really, especially after Mass Effect 3, you kind of realize just how brilliant Mass Effect 2 was.
Right.
And I can understand.
Just set the bar so high.
It absolutely did. And it's one of those things, too, where, I mean, I can understand.
Don't you give them an excuse?
Well, hold on. I can understand people that had.
I'm not.
I understand people that had a lot of complaints about Mass Effect 2 stripping away RPG elements, which was really just, they stripped away inventory management.
Yeah, the talent system. I missed the system where you would put the points in the bars and it had a little more fine control.
Right.
I would argue that, though, a role-playing RPG, role-playing game to put yourself into the story, I feel like even though they took away some of the elements that people attribute to most RPGs, I don't think that the story was less immersive or that you missed out or that it was less of a role-playing game and that you were less part of that role and part of that story.
No, absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm getting at here, because I actually think in Mass Effect 2, even your decisions mattered in Mass Effect 1, they mattered even more in Mass Effect 2. Whether or not you decided to do certain side quests really mattered. If you just felt like breezing through the game and not going to help out Jacob on that little planet, guess what? He might die, because you didn't do that. Or he might not be able to lead a squad, or he might not be able to, do certain things. And even though it's basically making a unlikable character very important, because if he goes down, someone else could go down later on as well.
Chain reactions.
Exactly. Or if you don't talk to him enough, guess what? You don't get armor plating. There goes Tally in the first 4 seconds of going through the Omega Relay.
I sense some bitterness here.
Yes.
Did someone have Tally die on one of his playthroughs?
Actually, yes, but I quickly reloaded because I knew exactly what I'd done wrong, and it wasn't so much that I didn't talk to Jacob, it was because I had talked to him, but I simply just didn't select. Like, I knew I had to do it, and I just forgot to do it, because I kind of just stopped talking.
Armor.
Right, exactly. I just never, I saw the option, but for whatever, I don't think I had the resources at the time. I can't quite recall what it was, but I just simply didn't do it. And then I went through the relay, and like a few seconds in, Tally died, and I was like, oh, wait, reload. Hold on.
Let's be real. You just reloaded your save game to see her take her mask off again.
Right. Yes, I did that too. But
who doesn't have a save at that scene? Don't lie, Krista.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a save at that scene in all 3 games, okay?
Yeah.
I actually don't. I'm not a big Tally fan. I already said I'm not a big Tally fan.
Not Tally, but
not Tally. Kate's saying it was save right before you go through the Mass Effect
Oh,
or
right.
the
Yeah.
relay, so that you can hook up with your ally of choice.
Exactly.
That ass, Miranda.
Oh God.
Really, Miranda was your ally.
Well, no, just for one of my playthroughs of Mass Effect 2. I would romance Liara through 1 and 3 and whatever you got from 2. I guess you got a little picture.
Right, you got a picture in 2 and you got a little Kelly dance.
It was, yeah. I don't want to. Don't tell Liara though. She might get jealous.
All right, so sorry to digress into that, but I mean more of the fact, like I said, the brilliance of the suicide mission and how much it really made everything in your game matter.
Right.
Krista, if we can go to you at your lasting impressions.
So, with Mass Effect 1 by itself, the biggest thing that I think is so amazing about the game is just the science fiction originality of the universe. So I feel like people playing Mass Effect, you could compare that to if you were to have gone and seen Star Wars in the movie theaters for the first time, like in the 70s.
Wait.
And you're like,
okay.
there is something that's so, especially as a science, like it's bigger, I think, if you're really a science fiction fan, and I am, where it's like you've created something that's so immersive, but also original, which I've seen lots of things that are very immersive, but they're not necessarily original. And it makes you feel like you're part of like this big, new, amazing thing, and that it's yours. And I really feel like Mass Effect did that. Like whenever they start introducing races and you get to the Citadel, and I'm just like, it's like a really good book. It's like something you've never seen before. And I absolutely love the storyline. I haven't read the books for some reason, but I need to get the books. Like I would read the books. I would go see the movie even if it was terrible. I would like play all the games and read all the comics. And it's just a really amazing story and universe, and the whole thing is just its own, and I love that, and I think that carries over into 2. But my favorite thing about 2, we've already kind of covered, is how you're like the ending choices, and just how different your game can be. Like I know I was talking about this with some people the other day, and most people don't realize that I've talked to, you can kill everyone in 2.
Yes,
you can literally have nobody but you and Joker can't catch you, and you die. Everybody dies. So the difference in gameplay, like what you can get out of the exact same game, and how I really don't feel like any other game has done something that big. And that leads into why people are so unhappy with 3, because once you set that up, that's what people wanted and expected from Mass Effect.
Yeah. Wait, people are unhappy with 3?
Yeah, that's
slap.
Yeah. That's news.
Trolling.
And Kaitlin, how about yourself?
Oh man, there are so many moments in Mass Effect 1 and 2 that I will just never forget. It's like, I don't know if it's, I mean, I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation, so like as a sci-fi series, that'll always be important to me, but I don't know, I guess maybe it's just the point at which it fell in my life or something. Mass Effect is, for the time being at least, the sci-fi series that has defined my youth for me. And like when I, get all emo or whatever and I look up the stars at night, it's not Vulcans or Wookiees or whatever that I'm thinking of. It's Turians and Asarians and Solarians, and wondering if there is life out there and if it's at all like what we've seen in Mass Effect. And I'll never ever forget the first moment that you see your Commander Shepard's face in Mass Effect 1, as they've got that really great intro music playing and Shepard walks out onto the CIC and then goes up to the bridge, and then the camera turns around and pans onto Shepard's face. I will never forget that. I'll never forget the moment that she made Spectre, or like Davis said earlier, when she walks out of the rubble after one of Sovereign's claws falls on her. I'll never forget any of that. And I think that like, I was so proud of my Shepard at the end of Mass Effect 1, and she, to this day, feels like a part of me. And Mass Effect 2 really just compounded that even more, with the suicide mission and knowing that I could lose her or I could lose her friends. And I remember sitting there and throughout the whole fight scene at the beginning, and I knew I had all the upgrades and everything, but I was still so terrified that something was going to go wrong. And at the very end, when you're running away and the platform falls and Shepard has to make a running jump to the Normandy, and they slow it down just a little bit and you see her sort of running through the air, I was so terrified. And then at the cutscene at the end, when you see them all back on the Normandy and they hand her the data pad, and I hadn't gotten the achievement yet that said the one for not losing any squad mates. And I remember looking at my boyfriend at the time and going, who died? Who died? What did I do wrong? Who died? And I was freaking out. He goes, just wait, just wait. And sure enough, I got it on my first playthrough. Thank God nobody died. But, you know, it really left me on the edge of my seat. And they brought that into 3 as well, with the emotions that you have for the characters and the fact that you're sitting there just floored so many times. And that's what I took away from Mass Effect.
It's really fun listening to other folks, like how much they take away and how many things are similar to my own experience, or it's what we call, I guess, in television and in movies, it's the shared experience, and how much of it's the same. It's really a pity we didn't get someone that was a diehard Renegade to be on here to see if some of their stuff might be a little bit different, but. This has definitely been really, really interesting to listen to you guys talk about this stuff.
Well, what's amazing with Mass Effect is that when you talk to someone, whether they've played Paragon or Renegade, Fem Shep or Bro Shep, it doesn't matter. Everyone has had so fundamentally similar and yet so fundamentally different an experience with Mass Effect.
Yes.
And it's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there because we are well over an hour and a half. As I said, I'll go ahead and trim some of this down. For those folks that have been listening, I know this may have meandered quite a bit and definitely tread into Mass Effect 3 territory. But that's okay. It's podcast number 1. We'll get some of this flow ironed out for the later shows. But once again, I'd like to thank everyone with me. Krista, thank you for joining us. Kaitlin, and Davis, thank you once again for being on the podcast tonight. And look forward to doing many more of these.
Yeah.
Yay.